In a world that often celebrates and amplifies the wounded or immature masculine, this show is focused on the true essence of masculine power. It's time to reclaim and redefine healthy masculine energy in ourselves and in our relationships. Beyond the confines of toxic stereotypes lies a path of authenticity, vulnerability, and inner strength. As we embark on this journey, we ask ourselves, am I ready to heal the father wound within me, no matter what my relationship was with my own father, in order to embrace a new experience of healthy masculine energy within and all around me? You're listening to or watching the Sedona Soul Sisters show, where we share psychic guidance and healing for embodied spiritual awakening. I'm Christel Arcucci, and I'm on a mission to support spiritual practitioners to access your intuition, unlock your psychic gifts, and live your purpose. A big thank you to our listeners all over the world, and a special shout out to our listeners in Chicago, Illinois. Fun fact, if you didn't already know, I was born in Chicago and raised in the Chicago suburbs. You can schedule sessions in West Sedona or virtual psychic readings, angel readings, starseed readings, Akashic recode sessions, soul contract sessions, Reiki, life coaching, and more at SedonaSoulSisters.com. Each breath you take aligned with love repairs the healing web on planet Earth. Before we dive into exploring the profound impacts of the father wound and pathways to healing, let's take a moment to set our intention. Whether you had a nurturing father figure in your life or not, many of us carry wounds of the collective unhealthy expression of masculine energy, which happens in all genders. So let this be an invitation to open our mind and hearts to redefine healthy masculine presence, not as domination, emotional distance, or abuse of power, but as a force of protection, guidance, emotional transparency, and responsible strength, a power rooted in wisdom, caring, and accountability. May this episode allow us to reclaim positive masculine energies many of us have been deprived of, or we have distorted versions internalized, to shed the unhealthy coping mechanisms and embrace vulnerability as a profound expression of masculine courage. Let us cultivate the ability to integrate nurturing and emotionally present feminine and purposeful, discerning masculine within ourselves and our relationships, to become role models of the dynamic balance of masculine and feminine within each of us for future generations. With this intention, may we find healing, may we find growth, and may we manifest the highest vision of independent, life-giving, masculine and feminine energies working in harmony. The relationship between a child and their father, or primary male parental figure, plays a profound role in shaping emotional, psychological, and social development. A father's presence, involvement, and way of relating can leave an indelible mark that reverberates through a person's life. When a father figure exhibits qualities of healthy masculinity, traits like emotional availability, nurturing, protection, guidance, and modeling of positive values and behaviors, children tend to develop a strong sense of security, self-worth, and resilience. However, when a father is absent, emotionally unavailable, neglectful, or outright abusive, representing an unhealthy expression of masculinity and really humanity, it can create deep wounds and lasting negative impacts. The father wound manifests in a myriad of ways: low self-esteem, difficulty forming secure attachments, anger issues, addictive behaviors, and more. Healing the father wound is a journey of acknowledging the pain, practicing self-compassion, seeking support, and ultimately redefining one's concept of inner healthy masculine energy and presence. An important note at this point in the podcast episode is the focus of this work is your own inner relationship with your father, past, present, or future, and cultivating a healthy way of fathering yourself, of holding powerful masculine presence, no matter what your gender, no matter what your relationship with is or isn't with your father. That this work starts with working with the inner archetypes, which then can lead to opening doors to having a conversation with your father. Yet this work and this podcast is focused on the inner work. My work focuses on working with inner archetypes. I did a recent episode that talked about healing the wounded child, the wounded feminine, the wounded masculine, and moving from the wounded aspect into the wise child, the wise feminine, the wise masculine. So this podcast goes further in that conversation, and it does bring in aspects of recognizing positive aspects of your relationship with your father, recognizing the shortcomings or the challenges that you faced. And for many of us, even if you did have a healthy relationship with your father, there still can be challenges to untangle in coming into a greater level of self-empowerment with these dynamic energies of masculine, feminine, and child essences in our own body, mind, and being. I'm connected into a lot of women doing women's work, which is super important. Yet one of the conversations I see in that realm are conversations about toxic masculinity, which I prefer to call unhealthy masculinity. And in English, these conversations can be very charged and problematic because the word masculine is most often related to only men. And part of the issue I see with the conversation of toxic masculinity is it is blaming, shaming, and making wrong men, which in general, I don't agree with that as an approach to creating lasting change. So it's more about doing the inner work of shifting our own relationship with these essences inside, and then doing the work to create it in the dominant culture so that there is healing. I talk a lot about the victim, perpetrator, rescuer, and many of those conversations about toxic masculinity are spoken from a point of feeling victimized by men, which that may be true. Many people have been victims of men doing things that are undesirable. When we engage on the trauma triangle, it is impossible to have a conscious and evolutionary relationship. So as you know, if you've listened to past episodes, that for me, it's stepping off of the trauma triangle to have a conversation, a deep conversation of healing, because otherwise it's just a game of unhealthy power dynamics fighting for unhealthy expressions of power. As I mentioned, in English, the word masculinity is most often related to men. In the Taoist teachings, they use the words yin and yang, where yin is the feminine principle, yang is the masculine principle. It can be easier to work with these energies and essences when it isn't masculinity equals men, femininity equals women, because all of us have feminine and masculine energies. So my aim for doing this work is creating the inner healing within each of us, right? Working on the trauma triangle in our own systems, in our own inner archetypes, to come into a healthier, whole, integrated place, which then is going to translate into our relationships with other humans and potentially change the dynamic if you have a difficult or challenging relationship with your father. Yet this work does not require you to have any relationship with your father. For example, my father has passed away, and there were many years that I had a very difficult relationship with my father, even though I was very close with him. It wasn't until he got sober that he became an incredible champion for my healing and an incredible father. But there's a big chunk of my life, there was a lot of wounds that God created from him being unhealthy and not knowing how to father me well. well. And so for me, even though the last years of his life, I had an incredible relationship with him, and he was an incredible father and still influences my healing path to this day, it is still important to acknowledge both. So the invitation for you is that there can be a way of our minds trying to protect someone we love. And if you have mostly a good relationship with your father, or you don't want to drag a bunch of skeletons out of the closet, it's partly just to shift the relationship you have with the past and doing this work internally. It doesn't need to be complicated or create more stress in your system. The ideal situation is creating the internal healing in our own systems so that we have greater dynamic balance with these energies and principles in our own lives. With that being said, healthy masculinity refers to a positive and well-rounded expression of traits, behaviors, attitudes traditionally associated with healthy masculinity, emotional intelligence and expression, the ability to recognize, express, and manage one's emotions in a constructive manner. This involves being comfortable with vulnerability and seeking support when needed, empathy and compassion, having concern for others' well-being and being able to see from different perspectives, and responding with kindness and understanding, respect and equality, treating other people with dignity, valuing diversity, rejecting toxic attitudes like misogyny, homophobia, or discriminatory views, accountability and responsibility, taking ownership for one's actions, admitting mistakes, and striving to have integrity in words and deeds, nonviolence, resolving conflicts through open communication, negotiation, and nonviolent means rather than aggression or force, emotional availability, being present, nurturing, and involved in close relationships and family life, providing support and care. Self-awareness, having insight into one's strengths, weaknesses, values, and triggers while remaining open to personal growth. Healthy masculinity embraces positive qualities like strength, courage, and leadership, and moves away from unhealthy expressions of masculinity rooted in misogyny, violence, emotional repression, or hyperaggression. It champions equality, self-reflection, and well-rounded development. I spoke on a recent episode about the vertical energetic of the masculine principle and the feminine principle being more horizontal in nature. The masculine qualities in nature are fire, air, and ether. You can see this in many systems, not just in the yoga tradition, that there are the elements of nature are spoken about in masculine and feminine essence. The feminine elements are water and earth. The masculine elements being fire, air, and space. I find working with the principles, the elemental aspects, easier to make it less about gender and more about energy. Each of us are made up of all of the elements. And so where are the unhealthy aspects creating challenges in our own lives, in systems? What are our relationships with these elements? Cultivating our relationship with the elements can more easily support us in having our own experience of healthy relating to the masculine principle. For example, the element of fire, lights are an expression of fire because of the electricity. Having hot water or heat are qualities and aspects of the fire element. The sun is related to the masculine essence. And we can see how the things that I just mentioned can enhance our lives. Yet, when they're out of balance, like for example, I was in Northern California for many years and the wildfires were so intense. And in many other places in the world, they have been as well. Yet there's an expression of the element of fire that is completely out of control and unhealthy. So as we explore our own wounded aspects, our own ability to hold our own fiery nature. For example, anger, rage is often related to the element of fire. And it's important to recognize in cultivating emotional intelligence that these emotions on their own are not problematic. But when they get out of hand, out of control, they absolutely can cause issues. Yet in cultivating our own emotional intelligence to be able to be with our own inner fire, which also creates passion and creativity and inspires us to take action and create change in the world, which these are very important and healthy expressions of the element of fire. And just like I expressed in our own relationships with our fathers, the father wound, that there are both, just like I just mentioned, there may be incredibly helpful, powerful things that you have learned from your father and in that relationship, with your own relationship with your masculine energy. And also there are the wounded aspects, and allowing both to exist at the same time and using conscious practice to be able to celebrate the aspects that were healthy, supportive, uplifting, inspiring, and also acknowledge the inner support that we need to create deeper healing in moving forward in an integrated and healthy way. Often in the exploration of masculine principle and essence, the way that it's presented is often the left brain logic, strategic systems thinking, relate more to our own masculine energy and essence. And so looking at creating systems and structure can be supportive and healthy, and also can, like most things, be unhealthy, limiting, restrictive. And in exploring masculine energy is being willing to look at both sides, the aspects that are healthy and supportive and great, and the aspects that are unhealthy, unwanted, and need change. In our world today, there are many problems that are unhealthy masculine essence and energy. Yet as a collective, I think it's important to come into a state of community and collaboration to shift these aspects. Often there's a lot of the conversation happening that is shame, blame, make wrong, pointing the finger and saying this is a problem, you have to stop doing it, or masculinity is a problem, or it's toxic, which I would like to see more conversations happening that are about healing as a whole, recognizing the ways that the trauma triangle is being acted out in our own experience and in our lives. So how can we take an approach to healing all aspects within and without, to create a situation and going forward where we are working together to create the best possible world? And this is an incredibly complex topic, and I don't have all the answers, yet my work focuses on doing the inner healing work, which then shifts the relationship we have with ourselves, with the people closest to us, and how we relate to the world, which is one path to creating change. And conscious healing is an invitation for all of us to do what feels most important and aligned for each of us as our soul purpose and our soul assignment here on earth. As we strive to heal wounds of our past and overcome limiting beliefs about masculinity, what practices or rituals can you adopt to deepen your connection to your authentic self and nurture masculine essence in a healthy and holistic way? Thank you for being a part of our community. I'm honored to support your embodied spiritual awakening. Are you ready for a personalized rites of passage in Sedona with me? The Rites of Passage is an extraordinary 2-day private retreat in Sedona designed to support your embodied spiritual awakening. The pressure of the current global challenges are calling spiritual practitioners to embrace purpose, power, and pleasure on a profound level. If you're passionate about awakening the divine within and ready to embody your legacy, step into leadership, and live your purpose, this in-person immersion is for you. Schedule your life-changing private immersion in Sedona at sedonasoulsisters.com/purpose. Leave a review and follow on your favorite podcast app. Until next time, breathe gently, listen to your guidance, and create miracles.